Hey everyone, back with another video for you this week. I think I missed dropping this video last week, and it's probably because this video is actually a bit longer than usual. It's probably going to be about 25 minutes long, and it's kind of picking up where I left off in the last one, where as you can see, I'm continuing to build up this vessel into a vase type shape. And I'll take the same approach where I'm rolling out the clay until it's kind of like a log, and then it being a piece of coil basically, and then fitting that on top. Use like a serrated edge to score the top of the vessel itself, a bit of the coil itself, and then put a bit of slip in between, and then fit it on top, making sure that when I put the coil on top of the vessel, you're kind of like jiggling it a little bit, give it a little bit of a jiggle so that it kind of presses into it. And then what I do is I roll out a thinner piece of coil, put that in between, and then you're basically just trying to merge that thinner piece of coil into any kind of gap that is there between the bigger piece of coil that you put on first and the actual body of the vessel. And that's exactly what you can see me doing here. I'm just basically just using a wooden tool to push in that thinner piece of coil into the bigger, into that gap. And you may need to do this a few times depending on any gaps you see. I guess you've got to kind of work with the surface and look at the surface as you're scoring it and smoothing it out afterwards to make sure that it's got no gaps. What I'll do once you've done that over a bit of time, what you can see here is that I'm using like a wide metal spoon. You can use normally a wooden spoon or any kind of flat wooden surface to just tap it out and make sure that the vessel is even from the outsides. I'm tapping on the inside because there were parts of it that were kind of bowing inward, so I was just kind of tapping it out, and there's a bit more of this later on. Over the course of this video, you'll see a few times where there is this plastic on, and that's pretty much because I've had to stop for the day, and obviously I cover it with plastic to make sure that the clay doesn't harden up and I can still work on it. I would wanted this piece to be done within like a day or two, but you'll see that it probably took me about 4 or 5 days, and whenever I think about that fact, it makes me think, you know what, if I was skilled on a pottery wheel, I could have done this within like half an hour. You get the clay, put it on the wheel, and you just make the pot or vessel or whatever. This has taken me 4 days to do, but I guess I like this style of hand building. There's something repetitive around it in a quite therapeutic way. It gives a lot of opportunities for like meditation, and you can kind of really focus on what you're doing. I don't know if I mentioned before in a previous video, but I go to a practical philosophy class, and one of the things that they taught us about early on when you start in like the early terms is the concept of focusing on the working surface and how that supports like meditation and mindfulness and things like that. And it's all about, I guess as an artist, they talk about the whole idea of, being in the zone. And that is kind of what I'm talking about, but more specifically around connecting with, the tools that you're using and the actual surface of what you're using it, and kind of having that moment of sync between both. There's like a synchronicity or symbiosis, simple symbols of status. I'm talking rubbish, but do you know what I mean? There's that kind of connection between yourself as the artist or ceramicist, potter, whatever, and the actual surface that you're working on. And I guess what's one of the reasons why like working with clay is there's a real connection and tangible connection with what you're creating, as opposed to like if you were a digital artist. You know, that kind of connection to the working surface is there, but it's in a different. Working with clay is very tangible in that respect, and that's what I like about it. But I do think about, damn, it took me 4 days to get to this point. What I'm doing here is I'm using that wooden, it's actually a wooden spatula, and I'm using a rolling pin to basically just tap the inside of the vessel, to make sure that it's straight. And I don't know if you can see it, you may have to pause it, but there'll be a little bit of light between the wooden spoon and the actual outside of the vessel. And what I was doing is that if there was a gap, I was just tapping it from the inside to basically just flatten it out. And what I was doing is just like turning it, and I did this for about half an hour, more or less. And what I found is that there were still some places that you can see like a slight bow and a dip. So then what I would do, or what I actually did, was just go back to it and just continue slowly going around, move a little bit, and then tapping it out, moving it, tapping it, and eventually it got to a place where I felt happy with how uniform it was. You can see there, for example, that I'm just slowly tapping out. As soon as that gap is closed, I just move on a few centimeters to the right or to the left and do the same thing. So what I was doing by this point is that I decided that I'd come to the end of going outwards. So there was a certain degree that I was, making the vessel. I wanted the right height and as well as the right width. But by this point, I thought, okay, I can start to put that curve in it so it's got the widest part of the vessel, and then I can start to slowly bring it up and then inwards towards the top. So that's what I was kind of doing at this stage. But anyway, let's get to the real meat and potatoes. I don't know why I say that. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't actually eat meat. But let's get to brass task. That's it. So one of the things I was thinking about while I was doing this video was intrusive thoughts. And me, like so many people, get intrusive thoughts. And I'll come on to probably one of the reasons why I have them in a minute. But as I do, I always will look to Google to kind of give me some answers and help, I guess, like plant the seed in my mind to start thinking about these intrusive thoughts. And what Google says is that intrusive thoughts are unwelcome, unwanted thoughts or images that repeatedly enter a person's mind, often causing them distress or anxiety. While most people experience them occasionally, they can become more frequent or disturbing for some, especially those with anxiety or OCD. I don't know if I have OCD or anxiety, maybe I do. I think my mum has OCD, so if I do have any OCD traits, I may have got it from her. Anxiety, I don't know. I don't know if I've delved into that idea of whether or not I have anxiety or not. I think we all have anxious moments or anxious times or things that make us anxious, but I don't think I suffer with anxiety. I wouldn't say that. Some of the other points that are in the Google search were unwanted and involuntary, meaning that the intrusive thoughts are not desired or actively chosen by the individual. They can often be disturbing or distressing, making us feel frightened or upset and feel inappropriate, and lead to feelings of anxiety or fear. And in hindsight, while I'm editing this video and thinking about it and doing this voiceover, I think I was thinking about it a bit last night, and I guess one of the reasons why I get intrusive thoughts, and while I was doing a little bit of reading on Google, there was a lot of associations between intrusive thoughts and impulsive thoughts, and I'll come on to impulsive thoughts in another video. But one of the reasons why I probably have intrusive thoughts is because of the life that I've had and things that I've been exposed to in the past. There was probably a time in my life in my late teens, I mean throughout my teens and like throughout my 20s, where you're just exposed to a lot of like graphic images online, violent films. And certainly when I was in my early 20s, some of the films that I would watch, whether it's Kill Bill or these kinds of films, you're just, oh man, that looks amazing. It looks cool the way that guy's head got chopped off. And I guess it wasn't until I got a bit older, I'm going to be 41 next week. But when I got into my 30s, I started to really, connect like these kinds of things with real life situations. I don't know if that's because of social media and we got exposed to a lot more real life events, not necessarily of people getting their heads chopped off, even though we've seen that throughout like wars and things like that we've seen reports of online. But you start to really make those connections between actually these are real people. It's not just someone's brains getting blown out or their head getting chopped off or they're getting stabbed. This actually happens in real life. So that, the cognitive dissonance that seems to disappear, and then all of a sudden you'll just be randomly walking down the street, looking at a nice landscape, and all of a sudden you get thoughts of like a bus hitting you, or you're in a car crash and you're not even in that situation, or a bus is not even around, and all of a sudden you're feeling all this stuff around this stuff. You're feeling stuff around the stuff, and it can be really crippling sometimes. And it made me actually, just going a bit deeper with intrusive thoughts. One of the things about me that I'll share is that I wear my earphones, my Apple earphones, all the time. Like whenever I'm at home, my wife says that I'm a bit of an absentee husband because I've got these earphones in and I'm just listening to podcasts or watching things on YouTube and things like that. Even though I may be functioning and doing other things, I've already got those in. And it made me think that whether or not I used listening to things as a way of blocking out those intrusive thoughts. Sometimes I feel like if I'm not listening to something, or whether it's music or podcasts or something like that, I will just be bombarded with all these thoughts that I don't really want to have. And it's not because I'm not dealing with them, because I feel like I'm quite a reflective person, so I'm dealing with things or thinking about things or reflecting on things quite a lot. And I feel like it is in a constructive way. But I do recognize that sometimes when I don't have my headphones in, I feel a bit anxious, and all of a sudden I'll have like these random thoughts that I don't really want to have in that moment. And I thought that was quite interesting. It made me think about whether or not I actually genuinely use this to kind of like escape, or to just kind of like bury difficult thoughts that I may have quite normally, as we all do. So I guess the challenge for me there is to, now that I recognize that, is to see if I can, I guess, listen to less things. I mean, have my headphones in less and just actually embrace if I have like these dark thoughts, because they are just intrusive thoughts. They're just there because of your mind is a bit of a random space that things will just randomly attack. And then you'll have like an association with one thing, and then all of a sudden this random thought will come in, and it seems intrusive, but it all started from somewhere. So just something for me to think about. I think I'll come on to that whole thing around impulsive thoughts in another video. I think that maybe I might need to do a little bit of research on that, because I don't really know about that in too much detail. I mean, what Google says is that I guess the similarities between intrusive thoughts and impulsive thoughts is that they're difficult to control and they can interfere with your daily life. Intrusive thoughts can be a bit involuntary, whereas even though impulsive thoughts can also be like spontaneous and involuntary as well, they're not the same way. Impulsive thoughts could be a little bit more kind of mild on the scale, whereas intrusive thoughts can be quite graphic and quite powerful and more crippling. Impulsive thoughts may be linked to other things like ADHD or bipolar disorder or some form of behavioral issue. So there you have it. I don't know why that all came to mind, but I thought it was interesting because that was what I was thinking about a lot while I was making this vessel. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm waffling a little bit, and I don't mind doing that because I do waffle. It's just, one of my habits. I think I need to work on maybe articulating myself better or organizing my thoughts a bit better and then presenting them. I'm going to share that in some of the videos that I've done previously. If it's more articulate, it's because I've actually written it down first and then I'm just reading those points out loud, which is really sad actually, but I actually like those videos. Why not? Whatever works. And then it's constantly evolving, so I might use that method then and this method now, where I'm literally just looking outside the window and talking, no filter. So for the remainder of this video, you'll just see that I'm using the wooden tool to basically just put some patterns around the side of the vessel. I didn't want to kind of leave it just plain. I thought I would kind of use some nice little designs and stuff. So what I'm using is the other side of one of the wooden tools that I was using before, and this serrated tool, and just kind of, as you can see, the patterns. So I'll leave that with you. Hope you enjoy it. I really like making this vessel. I'm going to make these vessels, more of these vessels in the future. And yeah, maybe there'll be different shapes and sizes. I really like making the bigger kind of vessel. I think it's a bit more ambitious, and that's why I always am thinking about how I can take it to the next level with everything that I do. And I hope you appreciate it, because I really enjoy what I'm doing. And yeah, there you go. I'll leave you to watch the rest of the video and see how it ended up. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Enjoy. Peace.